I am delighted today to be joined by Evelyne Doyle at Patagonia. How I came across Evelyn is an interesting story. Serendipity is an interesting word that we quite often miss, not being in close proximity. I was going through emails in true COVID style. I bought a Patagonia sweatshirt and I was looking for the receipt because it was late arriving. So I was going through my emails and I typed in Patagonia, and an invite I received a year ago to a HR conference somewhere in Europe. I saw Evelyn's name, HR Director Patagonia, and it spiked my interest. The Irish name, a brand that I'm a fan of as a consumer and also for what it stands for in this world. And I went into the link and it brought me to a talk that Evelyn had given recently. And I knew we had to have her. For a brand that stands for climate action, a brand that really has a unique place in this world, a brand I love. It was a shame that ultimately I bought it and it arrived 3 weeks later, my jumper, in this huge box all the way from China and made of the worst material ever. It probably broke every principle, every rule for Patagonia and what they stand for. So Evelyn, sincere apologies in me being part of this, but I was tricked into it and I need to get myself that jumper once more. Welcome, Evelyn.
Thank you, Robert. That's some introduction. I'm glad you're not doing marketing for Patagonia.
So am I, but I am a fan. So tell me, so we're going to explore now a community better together than apart and creating a culture of employee activism. You said to me when we spoke last, Evelyn, that you have a policy, and one of the only organisations I've ever heard of who have a bail policy. Why do you have a bail policy, and what does that mean for your mission?
Yes, Robert, good question. Yes, it's the first time for me too to be a HR professional devising such things as bail policies, where we clearly state that if you take part in environmental action or environmental causes and you get into trouble and get into jail, we will bail you out. We will pay for that bail. And why do we have that? Because Patagonia fundamentally believes that we need to act and we need to support and equip our internal community to act, not just the community we're part of and the campaigners we support and the grassroots activism, but our own people internally. You know, they want to come to work and be part of solving some of the bigger issues going on in our world. And, you know, we're hit at the moment with 4 big issues: health, economic, social, and climate. And one of Patagonia's clear missions is our environmental mission. And we believe there's a climate crisis. And, you know, many of our people took part in the global climate action campaigns in the last couple of years, pre-COVID times. And, you know, we feel that that's our duty to support them in that cause, because that's why they come to work for us. That's the purpose they signed up for. And, you know, we have to unlock their voice and support them in that journey.
You described that community, Evelyn, as a community of mavericks. That word mightn't run squarely with a lot of companies who probably look for conformity, and it might be at odds with how people describe their folks. What do you mean by mavericks, and how does that make Patagonia unique?
Yeah, I've been asked this also a lot, and you know, it's the first time, sort of the first organization I've worked for where we take a lot of time to hire. You know, we hire slow because it's important to us that the people who want to join Patagonia really want to serve our mission. And part of our jobs then, that when they do come on board with us, is to unlock that voice and connect up their role to that mission. And mavericks are people who, you know, they don't take no for an answer. That's not easy to manage. You know, that's a whole other day's discussion. But I think there's a behavioral change happening. And especially with our young people, they want to be part of organizations where leaders, you know, want to unlock that voice. They want to nurture that voice. And they want to treat them as the individuals that they are, and that you bring your whole self to work. And mavericks, they don't take no for an answer, and they want to take action. They're impatient. And it doesn't mean that you have to, you can still have rules and you can still have policies and processes, but the platforms need to be tweaked. They need to support that voice, and they need to, like our bail policy, like the fact that we have environmental internships of 2 months where people can go take paid leave and work for grassroots activism causes and actions right across the world, and still have their job with us when they come back. Because we also believe as a company that nurturing those mavericks is that we recognize that we're part of the community, and that as much as we want to bring this talent in and utilize this talent, we must put back something to them. So it's not just an extraction model either. I think it's also about how, as leaders, we support our employees to use their voice.
You've just given me a new word for my 3 children. I've got 3 little mavericks at home, Evelyn. And I don't know if you're like me, but I tell you, it's an incentive in itself to get back to the office sometimes. Speaking of office, we are better together than apart. What is your plan as restrictions lift? And I'll add 2 additional questions as you articulate this, Evelyn, if you don't mind.
Sure.
What have we lost over the last year that we need to reclaim? And what have we gained that we need to keep as we reconvene?
Yeah, I'll hit it sort of in a roundabout way. I think, this word community is very, very important to us as Patagonia. We fundamentally have always acted as a business that recognizes it's part of planet Earth. It's why we're 1% for the planet member. It's why we're a B corporation. So we feel we have a duty of care. We extract from planet Earth, we need to put something back. The 1% is our Earth tax. And part of being a community is working together, playing together. As you know, we're an outdoors organization, which encompasses spending a lot of time in nature and wild spaces. That's mainly what we have a love for, what our internal community has, the people who come on board with us on our campaigns, saving wild spaces like our Blue Heart campaign in Europe a couple of years ago. And I think what that means is coming together is that we still want to work and see each other together. That's where we get our inspiration. That's where we find our causes to act upon. That's where we share our stories. We're a bunch of storytellers. That comes from also being together. Now, I know that, especially within our profession, this is a talent summit, and, one of the big questions is, the future of work, and is that all remote, and what's the point of offices or retail stores? We have retail stores, we have offices, and we do see that, we want to go back, of course, to our offices in some way. Now, that's probably going to be some sort of hybrid model, and flexibility, of course, is expected, and we will, of course, work towards that as well. But we want to be together as well, because that's what being part of Patagonia community is about. And yes, we've lost that a little bit. We want to be in the forest together. We want to be at the rivers, saving the last remaining Blue Heart of Europe. We want to be in spaces together. How we do that, that's another day's work. But that's how we see, post, hopefully, Corona, us going back to, because it's important. We've lost that sense of our inspiration together as well, because we're all in Patagonia because we want to serve that mission, different to, where you could otherwise choose to be. And, we want to work together to do that. But we can do also many things together remotely, and it's been amazing how committed and how people have worked through those times together in Patagonia. But yeah, we miss being part of that community together. It's very important to us.
Yeah, I personally believe what happens between us matters most, Evelyn. And it's our experience of one another that creates the crack, it creates the spirit, the heart and soul of what work is, to me personally. My colleague Claire showed a spectrum of companies and their polarizing views on what's next in terms of where we work. And Patagonia, you fell on one side, which was broadly favouring being together. And then we had just heard from Dropbox. Caroline just told us about their virtual first journey. And in between, we had a distributed model, and it was a company, Coinbase, the cryptocurrency platform. And I saw that their CEO came out recently, and he came out and he has introduced a strict policy for them not to express political views and not to be, he's banned social activism. Quite the opposite to what you stand for, and many companies stand for, in fact. But he believes that that would dilute their focus and it would cause polarizing of experience and views within their tribe, Evelyn. Now, you, from a political standpoint, I see Patagonia had took legal action against the previous, about Trump's administration, I think it was. What was that about, and where's that at?
Yeah, I'm just kind of sort of smiling to myself a little bit because, you know, I couldn't in my job in Patagonia turn around to anybody and say, you know, that your political views don't matter, or getting involved in activism is not allowed. It just voice has been and always and will continue to be so important. And yes, we are still in the midst of suing. You know, it's all about protection of land. It's protection of wild spaces. That's what this campaign has been about. And that's what our campaigns are about in America when under the Trump administration. It continues because these are sometimes long fought battles. And that's also another thing about Patagonia is we realize we're in this for the long term. There's no shortcuts to saving our home planet. There's no shortcuts to providing meaningful jobs to people. I think, you know, people want to know how an organization is meaningful in their lives. You know, there's a very, actually the line is coming away, especially in this Corona period, from who you are in your personal life to who you want to bring to work. So this idea that you can separate out and sort of silence that voice of your employee community, I think that's a challenging road to go down because, you know, in Patagonia, we are about completely unlocking that voice. Like, for example, today marks a day for us. We campaigned a couple of years ago to save 300 kilometers of free-flowing river, a beautiful, pristine blue running river in the east of Europe. Why did we get involved in that? You know, we're a clothing company. What does that mean? It's about preserving wild spaces for the enjoyment of everybody. And that's as simple as it is. And today marks another campaign in terms of us supporting those grassroots activism work. So that's what it's about. I mean, I think my own boss, former boss, who's now the CEO, Ryan Gellert, he's our CEO. He used to be my boss here in EMEA. I mean, he and a group of our others, they were arrested basically in, you know, the Rijksmuseum a year or so ago for taking part in climate action. This is just something that we accept, but more than we accept, we really want to nurture that because employees are your consumer. Employees are voting every day with where they spend their money, but not only their money, where they spend their time. And they, from the accountant to our IT folks to our sales folks, everyone wants to be able to play a part in coming home to their kids or coming home to their friends or, you know, within their community to say, I'm doing something to save the home planet. Because we don't have time, Robert, anymore. I mean, we might not have a planet to extract from if we don't get real as a business to engage. And we need our employees also to be engaged in that.
No, for sure. Now, if it's about impact, I think the accountants will have less impact in fairness, you know what I mean? But that's a different day's story, Evelyn. You make me feel so guilty for accidentally buying counterfeit goods now and all the activism that you're doing. But anyway, that's my bad. Two things you mentioned strike me. I'm reminded of the conversation between Billy Walsh and Dara Sheridan talking about high performance and about the holistic approach to the person. It's just full stop. It's HX, it's human experience, it's the individual. And not allowing for that voice, I think, is a restriction of power for good. It also ties me back to John Goulding's conversation from WorkVivo with Quiva. Malvina hosted it here, and they spoke about social capital. And they were discussing where, by whom and how work will get done, but it surfaced the question of why. This question of why. And I think that's what we're coming back to right now in terms of your mission, in terms of what you stand for as an organisation. My question. So, looking at the values and looking at how culture is experienced, if it's guided by that mission, Evelyn, you mentioned storytelling. Mm-hmm. If experience of culture is less about place and artifacts in the distributed world and more about philosophy and values, I'm reminded that it's stories that remind us, particularly the new joiners to our business, about what we stand for as an organisation. And you've brought to life so many examples and stories that are truly unique. If we look at your values over the last 12 months, which of your values, Evelyn, have been stressed the most? And which of your values have stood up for your people when needed most?
Yeah, I mean, our guiding values are cause no unnecessary harm, build the best product. We're not bound by convention, and, you know, we're in business to protect nature. I think what the Corona crisis has sort of doubled down for us on is what does it mean to really grow? What's humanized growth? What does growth mean anymore to a company, especially when you have an activist voice within, even in shareholder organizations, you have this activist voice asking what does growth mean? And I think for us, where our focus still continues and, you know, where we've doubled and tripled down on is our activism work where we can. Mm. And, you know, working with grassroots activists via our Patagonia Action Works platform, where we're connecting up NGOs and grassroots activism on sharing experience, skills and expertise, you know, doubling down our efforts on our Worn Wear campaign, which is, you know, repair campaign, because we believe, you know, that there is a new model of businesses and practices out there. I think where we've been tested the most is, you know, just being able to be together. That has definitely tested us. But the unwavering spirit of our people, like we have retail stores, it was tested. We had to shut down our retail stores, taking people who love being part of our retail stores, and we call them retail community hubs. Again, we use our stores as places of education, places of storytelling. We engage with the community. We engage with governments, activists on the ground, our consumer. You know, we tell our stories through our retail store employees, and they tell it to our consumers. And that's how we get our message out about, you know, how we should build better and how we should become constantly watch being a responsible organization and business. But I think, you know, before Corona, we developed in Europe a program that was all set in the nature, in the forest, and we came together called Earth University. And that was really about how we build our culture, how we revolutionize, you know, how we find our call to act. And this was also solidifying, you know, our connection to nature and our connection to an ecosystem, and that we're part of the ecosystem rather than standing apart from it. And how do you, you know, really lead from a bio-leadership, from a regenerative thinking perspective? And, you know, we've been tested because we're not able to do all those things, which are really active type work and active type engagement that can't really happen in a sort of remote world, a remote working world. So we've been really tested there, I think, in that front.
Looking at the impact HR leaders have had, Evelyn, probably transformed and enabled more organisation transformation over this last year than any other function has in our lifetimes. Mm-hmm. And we're now presented with a unique opportunity, I believe, to transform tomorrow's work to enhance human experience for the better. That comes with some weight. What do you think we could do to leverage that rate of transformation to continue to realise that vision amongst our leadership peers?
I think it's challenging leaders. You know, your role, I think your key role as somebody who's in a senior leadership position in HR at this moment in time is to really, I think first of all, it's to listen, not listen to just your leaders, but to listen to your employees. What do they want? What do they need? How do we move forward together? But it's also about building in and planning, you know, new sort of growth and learning paradigms. And, you know, what does it mean to be a leader in humanizing growth today? What does it mean to be a leader in nurturing and unlocking voice? You know, and I think, you know, key kind of focuses on different kind of learning models. You know, we have storytelling that is, you know, with actors and comedians and, you know, new forms of learning, I think are going to be key. I think also what will be key is really engaging and focusing on the new ways of work. You know, what is the hybrid model or the standalone model or the diversified model that works for you and your culture? And take it all back to your mission. You know, how does the role of HR serve your mission? And if your employees are saying that their mission is not good enough, I think your role in HR is to also enable that voice to your, you know, unlock that voice to your leaders as well. So I think for companies these days, I think in general, I think the question they all have is how are they dealing with the shift in consumer preference, and that people are really voting more politically than ever before because they realize that we're in a climate crisis. I think also realizing that more and more of the employees that, you know, or candidates that want to come and work for all global organizations want to be part of the change, and they want the company to be purpose driven. And that doesn't mean just stating core values or having a nice mission statement. That means really living them. And I think your role in HR is working out what kind of programs and platforms allow your internal stakeholders and working within the community to really live and breathe sort of a purposeful way of working.
Well said, and very well articulated. And you're nearly framing the concept of human experience that we're talking about, Evelyn, around the social well-being. So that means not just the connectivity between us at an individual level, team level, organization level, but in the community in which we exist. It's a fundamental thing that's been experienced as we've been individualized as workers, working from home for the most part over the last year, that we see the effects. We're living there, we're experiencing it, and we're expressing it. And then the ongoing kind of social and mental well-being of our people kind of coupled in to create that human experience. As we reconvene, Evelyn, what worries you? Do you see any future potential risks around bias, around managerial capital, getting those in office getting more exposure to management? What do you see as the main risk as we reconvene?
Yeah, and I've been thinking about this. I mean, I think we have many challenges ahead. I think if we look at Patagonia, and again, as a result of this pandemic, it has surfaced long, you know, social injustices as well. This pandemic has surfaced for all of us so many things. One of them being the Black Lives Matters movement and real issues around equity across all spectrums. Now, Patagonia for decades has been looked up to as a real teacher in terms of, you know, people reaching out to us and wanting to learn about what does it mean to be an environmentally mission-driven organization. And we're always very happy to take part in that conversation. I think where we're taking more the seat of the student at the moment is trying to understand better justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, because in essence, we're really seen as a white organization. And we brought out a statement recently on acknowledging that, we have lots more work to do in this area. And like all things that we do in Patagonia, we really want to look at this from a real systems change perspective. And that's a lot of the work we do as well, a lot of the programs that we're involved in. Again, it's the long-term view, not short-term. So long-term view means really looking at it from a systems change point of view. So that's evaluating now again through deep work on equity, justice, and also how in our own mission, because we have an environmental mission, we have a mission-driven organization, how can we further build on that, but also take into account other elements of equity and work through that. So I think all organizations are really faced with a reckoning here in terms of equity. I think equity is going to become, it's already here, and I think it's something that we do need to focus on as professionals within this summit. And I think, again, how do we remain nimble and entrepreneurial in organizations, but at the same time have the processes and the platforms and some structure behind that? I think that's just going to be the ongoing challenge. I'm challenged with it with our leadership team, the one that I'm part of, with my HR team. We're challenged with this every day. And I think it's, how are you going to be really responsive to the real rapidly changing kind of shifts in employee and employer contracts. I would call it now more even, it really is more of the human contract rather than the employee and employer contract. And I think we have a world to unlock there. And I think being nimble and responsive to that is going to be of paramount importance.
Human contract, I like that, Evelyn. That is the new psychological contract of work. It is human, deeply human.
Deeply human.
It is, it really is. And you've touched on several points that run deep with a lot of our folks, I know. So the pandemic, within the pandemic over the last 12 months, race, ethnicity has clearly surfaced. And it's given us a platform, A, to deal with it, and B, to do better because of it. And the other crisis is that one that you guys are squarely trying to tackle and doing better than I've seen any other corporation in the world do around the climate crisis. So you've really touched on several points in a real honest way, Evelyn, and I really appreciate your candor on those points. You remind me of a comment that Ryan Smith, the founder and chairman of Qualtrics, said a few short moments ago when talking about Dermot Costello. He said that their value was to be all in. If people are committed to them, doing the best work for them, that they're all in. And they need, in turn, to show up and be all in for their people. And that means all in on a human basis. It means all in on a social basis. It means all in on a well-being basis. And that needs to be deeply considered. And it's really reassuring, again, to quote a comment he made when he spoke about Dermot, that he had us when he was here, and when he was younger, he had him. He had his arm around him, and he gave him the comfort that he had him. It sounds to me like you've got your people, Evelyn, and doing a phenomenal job around that. Power to you. Good luck with the next stage as you plan your next steps forward. I promise not to buy counterfeit clothes again, accidentally. And I was really encouraged, Evelyn, with a full-page ad in the Irish Times last week. You're in Amsterdam, and with a full-page ad, and we did all the speakers listed. And you sent me a note and saying that we made your mum's day seeing you in the Irish Times. And it's funny, I had the exact same experience with my mum. Like, that's why we do it. Like, we're only like doing anything half decent, and if it's in the Irish Times, it's major. So look, it's nice to hear those stories come back from far and wide. I wish you every success, Evelyn, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Robert. And can I just say it's been a pleasure, and pleasure also conversing with you in these last few weeks. And, just one final comment is, I'm very lucky to be part of Patagonia, and it's the people in Patagonia that make this work happen. and that they continue to act and inspire all of us to do better work. And I'm glad to hear that, you bring that word in, human, and the human contract and the human balance. It's all what's required now. And yes, I'm very proud that I made my old mammy happy.
Continue to be bold, keep those mavericks out of jail, and never settle, Evelyn. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.